Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
Yeah, let's do it. We're going to do our NCAA Week 6 preview. I can't believe we're already at Week 6.
We're already at week 6. It's an interesting week. There's only one ranked matchups, but a lot of intriguing matchups too. So I'm looking forward to this week.
Yep. And if you're watching and you like what we got, please subscribe. It would really help us out. Just come along for the ride with us. All right, so I'll get started.
Okay.
My first game that I'm interested in here is Michigan State at Oregon. It's just because it's Oregon. It's one of the big teams. They've had a couple of ho-hum games earlier in the season, and they've had a couple of ones that made them look like a top 5 team. So I'm hoping I just want to see which Oregon shows up here. You know, are they going to look as dominant as they have the last couple of games? Or are they going to put in a shaky performance like earlier in the season? So it's important enough just because they're a top five type of team that's expected to be at the end of the season. So got to have eyes on this one. Also, Aiden Childs to me is just really fun to watch.
Yeah, he's got the biggest difference between the ceiling and the floor, right? Like his athletic like when he's on, it's like a different kind of specimen. But he has some down parts too, though, which has been a challenge. This game wasn't really on my radar. I think Oregon's going to win. It's just a matter if they blow them out or if they squeak by. But either way, I wasn't really going to be a must watch for me. What is a must watch for that night is going to be the Syracuse UNLV game. I love the story with UNLV, how they almost left the Mountain West but didn't, and then their starting quarterback just up and left for an NIL problem apparently. And the last week the team didn't miss a beat and just put in the other quarterback, killed Fresno State with one of the biggest margins of winning mark, whatever. They beat them by a lot. And this will be the second game for that quarterback this week. And this is Kyle McCord and Syracuse coming into town to play them. So I'm excited for this one. I'm looking forward I'm all about UNLV now and their resurgence with their new personnel and they got this will be a good matchup for them against Syracuse.
Yeah, these are two of your adopted favorite teams this season.
It is
because of McCord and because of this new quarterback at UNLV. And it's kind of fun that UNLV is undefeated. And I think that blowout win was utterly unexpected.
Yep. And this is, when I first moved to Montreal, I had season tickets to Syracuse the first year because they're only about 4 hours away. And when Allegiant Stadium was first built in Vegas, we went to that to see UNLV's first home game. So got some ties to both these teams. So that was the fun fact about the season when I had the Syracuse season tickets. I got season tickets, and that's when FSU played them and Clemson played at Syracuse. And for the season tickets and the parking, it was cheaper than just the parking pass for the Florida-Georgia game. So it was
for the one game
for the parking, just for the Jacksonville game. Yeah. So it was a real deal for back then for the Syracuse season tickets. So go Orange.
Yeah. I was there with you at the Clemson Syracuse game. So what's interesting with UNLV is I wonder if this is turning into a perfect marriage between coach and team, the way O'Brien is at BC, BC is sneaky kind of in contention for the ACC now.
Yep.
But I wonder if that's what's going on at UNLV. Like we finally matched the right coach with the right team there.
Absolutely. There's something about when you go through, times of struggle and it can either break a team up or bring them together. And it really seems like they're rallying around this, the QB and the coach, and which is fantastic.
On the note about them not leaving the Mountain West, that's a bit of a mess we need to talk about at some point, is the Pac-12's trying to patch together a league but gutting the Mountain West, but now other teams are going to leave their leagues to replenish the Mountain West. It's just a mess.
Yeah, no, it's like this is the downside of conference realignments and stuff like this.
Yep. All right. So next one I'm going to have eyes on is Mizzou at Texas A&M.
Yep.
Kind of an important game for both teams because A&M, I think, is kind of under the radar, but they've only got the one loss, and it might be aging well if Notre Dame keeps playing well. And Mizzou needs to show. They need to really show up against a strong team here. I mean, they're undefeated, but they seem to be hanging in there against teams they should be handling a lot easier than they have been. So maybe it's just preseason hype, and they aren't as good as people want to say that they are, but they do have some way over the top talent on that team. like specifically Burden. I think he's the best receiver in the country.
Yes.
So, I mean, they've got some pieces there that they should handle them, but A&M's got a lot of talent too. So that game, I think, will be one more competitive. It will be one of the most competitive games, I think, of the weekend.
Yeah, toughest environment Missouri's been in so far this season is going to be at Texas A&M. At time of recording, not sure if Connor Wegman's starting for A&M or if it's going to be the other person. But potentially, and Mizzou's quarterback is good too, so that should be an entertaining game. But it's Mizzou's. You're right; they're going to have to show up with the A game, and it's the biggest test they've had by far. So, this is going to tell a lot about them if they're a top 10 team or not. Because right now they're ranked 9th, but we'll see. Okay,
yeah, that's a charity ninth from last year in preseason. Like
probably
they're gonna earn some of it if they win this week.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, next one I'm going to have my eyes on is going to be the Iowa at Ohio State game. This is, it's a conference game, but it's really going to be the first time I'm going to watch every snap of Ohio State game because I haven't done that yet this year. And Iowa's defense is good. That's the one thing we know about them is their defense is good. So I want to see how Ohio State, how well they move the ball or don't move the ball against Iowa. And because I think that'll tell us something about them. Talent-wise, Ohio State's supposed to be one of the best teams in the country. So I want to see if they look like that when they go against Iowa in the defense. I don't think Iowa's a chance to win this one, but it's more about if they can keep it close in a 3-touchdown point spread type situation. So, but it'll be the biggest defense test Ohio State's faced so far, and that'll be a good matchup.
I'll be looking at this one with the thought of the Kentucky-Georgia game, Iowa being the Kentucky stand-in and Ohio State being the Georgia stand-in. Given that Ohio State and Georgia are expected to be there at the end, can Iowa drag them down into an Iowa game and force Ohio State to play an Iowa game the way Kentucky did to Georgia, or is Ohio State going to dictate the pace of this game? So to me, it's kind of those are mirror image games. This is the Big Ten version of that game. And is Ohio State going to look as weak as Georgia did or as pushed around as Georgia got, or is Ohio State just going to dominate? So that's kind of how I'm thinking about this game. And speaking of Georgia, the next one's Auburn at Georgia. I don't expect this to be much of a challenge. It's just how well does Georgia bounce back? The only thing is these two teams do play some crazy games that just don't go the way you think. And I mean, people can think of certain plays of the one famous one where the ball bounces through everyone and the Auburn receivers just going. And so Auburn seems to do that to both Georgia and Bama. I don't know what it is about that team.
Rivalry game, man.
Yep. So Georgia should bounce back. They need to bounce back. I mean, they're coming in off of 2 great quarters. Unfortunately, they couldn't close the game out against Bama. So they need to put 4 actual proper quarters in here. And to me, they need to actually just blow them right off the field to reassert themselves. It's sort of a step on their throat. Don't let them up and just show everyone like, oh, no, that, if we'd even put 3 quarters in against Bama, we would have beat them sort of thing. So it's put it this way. Someone's got to pay for what happened in Bama, and it's going to be Auburn.
That's a good way to
borrow
put it.
From Lou Holtz.
That's a great one. Yeah. That's a really good way to put it. So no, and it's at Georgia, so I think that's always, to me, has always been a better recipe to bounce back from something when you can have a home game and get the love from the fans and, have against a team that they won't be overlooking. It's an Auburn. It's a rivalry matchup for them still. And it's a perfect get right position, and like you said, that the odds makers think that it's going to be at least a 20-point blowout. So you're right. This is a perfect spot for them to be like, we got over that and we're still Georgia. So let's hopefully we'll see that on Saturday. Okay, next one for me. This one sort of jumped out at me in terms of the numbers, and we'll talk about it a bit here. So this is Michigan at Washington. So still getting used to the Michigan USC, Michigan Washington regular season games that are now conference games. Because this isn't a bowl game. This is just a regular season game. And what strikes me as weird is that Washington's lost 2 out of the last 3. And Michigan is ranked number 10 in the country. And if you had to guess what do you think the point spread, we talked about this briefly off air, but what do you think the point spread would be?
Oh, man. body clock, is there? What time of game is this? I want to know.
7:30 p.m. Eastern. So
That's not too bad for the Michigan
no,
team.
no.
I don't know, Michigan 5.5.
Yeah, when we talked before, we were both sort of thought Michigan 7, so like something like that. But it's Washington favored by 2.5, which is striking.
So that's a neutral field pick'em.
Yeah, that's a neutral field pick'em, like for an unranked team against a top 10 team. So I think it really says something about Michigan. It really struggles to throw the ball, and so if you go in one dimensional to even a competent team, that's going to be a problem. So that one is really surprising to me. I'm dying to see how that one goes out. I could see Michigan should have the talent to win that game, but if Washington can come up with a game plan that they just have to stop the run, and then if you force the Michigan to beat them through the air, can they do it? And it's also the first road game, I believe, for Michigan. Let me double check that. But so
that's a fair distance for the first road game, even if it's not a major body clock game. That's still something.
Yeah, it's their first road game. So
and that stadium gets loud.
It does, and at night, well, at least the 7, that'll be 4:30 local or whatever, but that, that's different than high noon. So,
and I think there's enough of a book on Michigan. I'm waiting for one of these coaches to realize to stack the box from the very, very first play.
Yeah.
And if Orji beats you with his arm, fine.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Minnesota and USC only figured it out halfway through the game and completely shut them down. So, I mean, one of these coaches has to be put in the kind of the odd looking game plan of like, no, everyone in the box, and fine. If you beat us deep, then good for you. But until he proves he can do it, they should be doing that the very first play of the game the whole way through.
Yeah. No, and Michigan, again, we talked about this as one of our reaction shows, but they gave up 3 touchdowns the fourth quarter to Minnesota. So their defense is supposed to be one of the strengths of the team. So if that isn't like that against Washington, then they are going to struggle.
And they gave up an onside kick that didn't get called. And that they've already changed the rule on that?
No, I just
saw an article yesterday saying something about being able, I don't know if it's a review or something, but they've already changed the rule on it, given how bad it was. Because on replay, it was blatantly obvious he wasn't offside.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and the fact that they gave that up, obviously got overturned, just shows you there's something wrong with how they close games out. Like they 3 touchdowns, and they gave up. They should have also given up the onside kick, which if that play stood, I'm sure they would have lost the game because they were just unraveling at the time.
Yep.
So they got to show up here. So maybe the odds are right. Maybe there's a matchup here we're just not aware of that's heavily in Washington's favor. Something on the field.
Yep. No, I don't. That's why I'm going to watch that one. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Okay. So I got Texas Tech at Arizona.
Yep.
And my note is just probably going to be the most fun game of the week. Arizona plays these type of games, but now they've proven they can win a rock fight too, the way they beat Utah last week, especially at Utah. That's just huge. And Texas Tech, their games seem to always be fun. So I think Arizona would prefer or can also hang in there in a track meet with Texas Tech. So I think that'll be just a fun game to watch. And now all of a sudden, a super important game in the Big 12.
Yeah, exactly. It's the conference matchup. And we talked about this last episode that there was, some teams have a real identity. Like Penn State is for years seems to be like good defense and just struggled having a dynamic offense or passing game. And to me, when I think of Texas Tech, I think of fun games, like the things that could like 55-60 and, change the lead change several times in a game. And it's the 3 touchdowns scored in like a period of 12 seconds or something like that. So, and Arizona can do that too. So the Texas Tech at Arizona, it's the prescription for an entertaining game. Not going to have too much competition that you're going to have to flip around at that point because it's 11 p.m. Eastern kickoff. So most things will be done by that time. So you'll be able to give your full attention. So
I'll be one of the only people fully awake for that one.
Yes, exactly. I look forward to see. I'll record it, but you're gonna have to wait for Sunday morning for my reaction for that one.
Texas Tech has been like this since Mike Leach.
It has for a
God
long
rest
time.
his soul. But since then, they've all the other people and Kingsbury. It's just all of a sudden the tradition is Texas Tech is a high flying fun team to watch.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, next on my list is Tennessee at Arkansas. So you always get a little nervous when you have a ranked team against an unranked team on the road, especially at night. And Arkansas is not bad. Like they were in. They've only have a couple losses this year, but they were in those games. And so, but the main reason for me to watch this is Nico and Tennessee, because I just love their offense. It's a fun offense to watch. I love when they speed it up and really put the hammer down. And so that one, it's a great matchup, a good SEC game. I'm looking forward to seeing that one.
Yeah, there's enough talent around the Arkansas roster that Tennessee has to put in a proper game here.
Yeah.
So my next one's Utah State at Boise State for no other reason than Ashton Genty is now a major Heisman candidate. We were talking about this off air. He dominates every game he's been in. He has 13 touchdowns, over 800 yards. Now he put 6 touchdowns up in one game against a much weaker team, but he's also he looks like himself and dominant even against Oregon and stronger teams too. So it seems to not matter who they're playing. He shows up like the best player on the field, no matter who they're playing. So now to me, this is a legitimate non-quarterback Heisman candidate watch. My only concern, at least for the Heisman, is they're not in a power conference, so he's not going to have enough games against power teams to impress the voters. So even if he puts up an absurd number of yards and touchdowns, I think he needs to challenge Barry Sanders type numbers for them to care. And even then they'll be like, yeah, but Barry Sanders was in whatever a power conference, whatever you would call those conferences compared to what we have now. So he might actually be the best player that is just never going to get the accolades because he's not in a power conference, but he's that good.
No, and I think I'm excited I'm obviously pulling for Utah State because my boy Dave goes there, but if Boise State wins and they can, have a really good season, and UNLV can have a really good season, it'd be super cool to have a ranked on ranked matchup for their Mountain West Conference title, which is entirely possible, right? Because Boise State's 21 right now and UNLV's 25. So if they both continue, that'd just be a great non group of 5 type matchup later in the season. So,
and if one of those two can make the playoffs, you've got they're both good stories. In this case, you've got the best running back in the country, and in that case, you've got the interesting story of UNLV's quarterback walking out halfway through and not missing a beat.
Yeah, which would be those would be great. Okay, so the next one for me, this is more of a disaster watch, which is going to be Clemson at FSU. I can't. How far down is FSU going to fall? Are they going to be able to play this one competitively or not? Clemson's a 2-touchdown favorite. Little concerned about what Clemson offense has been like for the first couple of weeks, but it seems to be better, and they're running Klubnik more, which is interesting. So see if Clemson offense can still continue to improve against FSU, and just to see how bad is it going to be there at Doe Campbell Stadium.
Yeah, that's all I have left to disaster watch. And now, for those of you who've been following us, this is my permanent disaster watch. I watch every FSU game for this reason. Well, it's just fascinating to see a team go from undefeated to falling off this badly, this quickly. Yeah. And DJU he's part of the problem, or maybe FSU fans might think he's the entire problem, but he wasn't this bad at Clemson, and he wasn't this bad at Oregon State. He hung in there enough for them to be sort of middle of the pack ish. And in both previous stops, you could find moments in those games where they could have won even despite him being limited. Whereas here, it's hopeless. It's just hopeless. And the defense is no good here either. It's just this team is completely fallen apart.
No, that's a good point, because they're going to be putting in a quarterback for their first start, or at least had limited action their whole lives, against probably one of the better defenses they'll face this season. So, which is thank goodness it's at home, because if it was at Clemson, that'd be an absolute nightmare to start a new QB at. But this potentially, hopefully he plays well, but if it potentially, it could get ugly fast if it's.
Well, this will be the best D line they face, no?
Yeah, absolutely, and the defense, I think, in general. So it's.
But I mean, let's yes, the defense in general, this will be the best FSU has faced, but this D line specifically will be able to get after whoever's back there, and it's going to probably be My guess is it's going to get ugly for whoever's playing quarterback.
It's hard not to. I mean, I think it's everyone has a plan until you get sacked 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And it's the plan's going to go out the window.
Right out the window. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there was something I heard online the other day. It's like, that's going to go right out the window. And I'm not even sure DJU could throw it out the window, but it's, I don't want to, get gang up on him. But
you didn't say that. Somebody else said that.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're happy to repeat it. Yeah. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. He went from as high of a recruit as he was, and all the coaches love him. They say he puts the work in. He does all the right stuff, but then he almost like he's lost his confidence because he actually didn't look this bad.
No, I'll never forget his first game because it was at Notre Dame, and he lit them up, and he looked. He had a strong arm. He could move
like 400 yards plus.
Oh, it was like that was coming after Trevor Lawrence, I think. Was
Lawrence got hurt, and everyone's like, "Oh, yeah. Great, the heir apparent." It's like they're going to go from Watson win a championship to Lawrence win a championship to now it looks like the next 5-star guy. Yeah. He comes in. I think they maybe lost that game, but he still put up a ton of yards, and it's like, "Oh, fine, we're good. We're good. If that's what he can do in relief in his whatever rookie season, he's going to be fine next year." Yeah. And we all didn't know that was going to be his best college game.
Like,
and he's only ever gotten worse.
Yes, which is shocking. It's really amazing how something like that happens. But yeah. It's just disappointing because I love when you have he's got all the tools and you think when you start there, it's like the ceiling is so high and for it to never get above that, it's sad. I was looking forward to him being amazing.
Yeah. Oh well, they're just not all going to work out.
So last one on my list is just is UCF at Florida. It's similar to the FSU. Like when you get to the point where UCF is coming to Florida and they're favored at Florida, gosh, that's a sign of of some bad times there. The other thing that's a little concerning is the over-under is 61.5. So no one thinks either defense is that good apparently, and there's going to be a lot of points scored.
I think we have lots of evidence that neither defense is good.
Well, I'll be mildly surprised if Florida offense looks really good and puts up a lot of points, but it's anyway.
It's just weak. It's just weakness against weakness. It's which one's worse.
I think that especially like UCF coming off a loss and is still favored at Florida. That's
and kind of a bad loss too.
Yeah,
it got
outclassed by Colorado, and so that's not a good
badly,
sign.
Like it.
Yes,
it's the UCF has had what I thought was a great win, and then since then it's like, oh, maybe they're not that strong.
Yeah, no. So anyway, that's
all right.
We'll see what that one's like.
All right, well, that's what we got for NCAA Week 6 preview. God, I can't believe it's already Week 6. So I don't know. We'll catch us after the weekend when we see how these games actually turned out and do our review. All right, see you later.